Well, it's that time, folks. Real life. Slow, steady, long. Sort you guys' cards. And beautiful 3% ladies. Sort your cards, sit back, and let's talk about, give you guys a little bit of the Rudy thought process and what I see going on in the world right now. So we're going to start talking about Magic the Gathering. We'll touch on Pokemon and Flesh and Blood and other stuff a little bit, but we're mostly going to talk about Magic today. We're in a very strange era of these new Magic cards, and obviously everything's very flashy, everything's very special, a lot of variants filled with secret layers and things that are not very secret, and it's created this new era of hype and concern for a lot of the more stores, distributors, and collectors, evil investors. But obviously the players seem to be happy, except there's still players are very unhappy with the R&D and the direction of design and standard. But it's really weird. It's like Wizards is getting it feels like to me almost that Wizards is trying to appeal to everybody, but by doing that they're appealing to nobody. There's a lot of ways to argue this, and we're going to argue point and counterpoint, and I'm just going to kind of read the comments, see what everybody thinks, and I'm sure there'll already be 400 thumbs down before even people watch the long 20-30 minute video. But let's start with the when everything's special, nothing special at all approach. So right now, obviously with this flashy era started in 2020, we're about to go into 2021, and post Throne of Eldraine post, we have not only do we have regular draft boxes, collector boxes, but with set boxes becoming a very big thing now. We have three main product lines for each product release. So for example, in the new Kaldheim, or however you pronounce it, the draft boxes, set boxes, and collector boxes, and the Commander deck set, technically four, are all going to fight for attention and fight for money and fight for sales. They each product line kind of battles itself. It kind of cannibalizes itself, as they say in the corporate world. Where if you make a fifth product line, you're going to cannibalize your own sales from the first four product lines based on a theory of limited resources and consumers. Whether you guys believe in that or not, that's another arguing economic statement, but it is what it is. It's irrelevant. But the concern, I guess I've never seen so many of my own patron messages and comments and just direct emails and local conversations and phone conversations with other collectors and store owners around the country. I've never seen so many of them saying the same thing. And they're saying to me that they're very concerned about the longevity of product and sealed product and the value of these cards that Wizards of the Coast is producing moving forward. And I actually took the stance of defending Wizards because I kind of firmly believe that, the only thing that's certain is uncertainty, and change will always occur. And based on that mindset, I believe that while people are frustrated with the sheer volume of products right now and the sheer lack of special cards, I think Wizards will shift again in the coming 12 to 24 months, and they'll either throttle down or make it worse, but they will change. I don't know which way they're going to go, but they will change. And, that's one thing we know about Magic. And I guess I want to address the first interesting scenario here. A lot of these collectors and investors of sealed product and stores and distributors, they make comments to me like, Rudy, look, if anyone has the most exposure to sealed product, you probably do. I probably have more exposure to sealed product than probably most distributors or all the distributors in the world, because distributors' job is to churn and burn and take cuts along the way, almost like a mob or a mafia. Their job is to move the product and take a cut as the product changes hands. I don't operate on that same type of business model. I operate on more of a long-term. I look at more of a long-term asset wealth in kind of swelling of a bubble type thing. Yeah, I use the word bubble. You can beat me up. For example, in the background of this video, you guys can see some old dual decks, some Global Series dual decks, some regular dual decks. I don't know which one. I think Merfolk and Goblins. We got Modern Horizons. We got Brawl decks. We got Theros of Eldraine. I love that Theros of Eldraine holiday bundles. And behind the camera, you guys can't see, There's a 20-foot whiteboard for different filming in this particular studio office location. And I got some of the old videos, and there's some personal financial. I got this section of the whiteboard you guys can't see behind the camera. There's a list of a bunch of different real estate properties I own, the current market price, what I paid for it, and how much I still owe on the mortgage, or if the house is finally paid off. There's a bunch of private data back there. Actually, over here in the corner, you guys can't see, there's a stack of, looks like maybe 100 plane chase anthologies from my old video where I built a fort. That was fun. And that's really about all I can see. It's very interesting. Oh, and some old original Commander anthologies from when I had them originally, and I couldn't sell the rest of them to patrons. They didn't want the Commander anthologies, so I just kind of kept the last 50 of them. And yeah, anyways, so people comment to me, Rudy, how on earth can you sleep at night and feel comfortable knowing that you're buying Modern Horizons, or not buying, you bought last year and you sat on the product when it was in print. Obviously, that's long gone now. How can you do that knowing the cards within the box aren't going to go up? And if they do go up, they're going to get reprinted. And if they don't get reprinted, they're going to be in a secret lair. In other words, they kind of just dude dart me, and they just chuck all these darts at me of negative reasons on why it's a bad decision. And I hear you, and I have nothing to rebuttal against these negative things that Wizards is doing with the products and with the single cards and their reprint policy and everything going on. I can't defend that because I think it's a poor thing they're doing right now. It's a poor choice. But I believe Wizards is trying to appeal to everybody. And by doing that, they're trying to make sure their political, cultural, sensitive topics, the banning and thing of old cards, the artwork style, and then, of course, the value, the capitalism, the corporate suits, the Papa hat. They're trying to encompass everybody into saying, hey, we're here for you. Well, one of the things I've learned about being on YouTube and running a business and having an LGS and having restaurants and real estate and doing this stuff for the last 20 years is I can tell you that's not a possible thing to do. By trying to appeal to almost everybody, you're guaranteed to have more collateral damage long term because people are going to detect and they're going to know if you're BSing and you're not authentic. They're going to know. Even in these videos, I mean, no matter what I make a video on, if I make a video on Flesh and Blood, Force of Will, Pokemon, Magic, or, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Buddy Fight, Vanguard, Weiss, anything I cover, the shallow, more Timmy-minded people who don't possess, kind of the depth of critical thinking, they're just going to think, oh, Rudy's trying to pump and dump something. They're going to be very quick to either dismiss or take a negative spin on things. And that's normal. And I don't think it's really a bad thing for those individuals. I think that's more of a kind of a side effect of the culture and the social media and how the world is in 2020. I think that's just how we're wired. I don't think a lot of people realize they do that. So when people ask me these things about how are you comfortable doing this stuff, how can you honestly, Rudy, say that sealed product in anything is worth anything? How can you have that kind of, tetherball pretzel sticks and literally sleep at night and think you're not going to lose your butt? And I don't have a good answer to that. Because many nights it can be concerning. There's many times I've kind of been up late and I've thought, man, maybe I should be throttling back. Maybe everybody's right and I'm going to look like the biggest Timmy. But I always step back and I always say, you know what though? If everybody's right in the sealed product and appreciation long term, all this stuff is over with, you know what? I'll proudly be the poster child for it. That's okay. I will make the videos showing you guys, hey, I put all my money in Modern Horizons, never did anything, I look like a fool. But, after doing this stuff almost literally my entire life at this point, I guess, the way it's just going to be, I guess it's just, it doesn't, not much really impacts or sways my decision on products and things anymore. There's really not much on the internet or the pitchfork mob or anything online that really sways or changes my perspective on Magic or Pokemon or Flesh and Blood or whatever it may be. And I don't know. Maybe I am legitimately crazy and I just believe. I truly believe Magic will stand the test of time. And, I say the same thing with other card games, and obviously Pokemon being number 2. There'll be ebbs and flows and ups and downs and booms and busts as all economic cycles run through. But I don't believe I don't believe it's going to matter. As we have these ebbs and flows and ups and downs, I think the business cycles of all products, I don't think it matters. I really think that in the long game, you know, like they always say, just to give you guys a little behind the scenes, when I had some really high net worth clients when I worked at the firm back in 07 to like 2010, 2011 range, you know, I learned a lot of things from these people, especially coming from, you know, a family where I was the first one to go to college, which looking back, I don't even know if it was worth it to go to college. I should just stayed with cardboard and kind of followed my dream, you know, one of those cliche things. You know, it really takes a lot of time to build wealth. It really does. And that's the difference between everybody who wants it now and impatient and they want to flip. And I don't think people understand that wealth takes time. It takes years, it takes decades, it takes generations to create the wealth. You know, it's going to take me, you know, I look back and I never really felt like I had much money or assets or free money or cash, especially when I was in college and all the years of waiting tables and slinging drinks. And I was like, you know, I came home, you know, lived with my parents at the time. And I came home, I never really felt like I had much. Again, I'd save my money for a week just to buy one Alpha car on eBay. Because, you know, an Alpha, you know, PSA 10 was $300 back then. It took me a whole week of tips to save that. But it really takes a lot of time, and people aren't willing to stick that out. People give up. People are impatient, and everybody wants to, you know, wear and be a part of the next flashy hot thing. And usually that derails people's mindsets and long-term goals, and that's just human nature. We live in a very consumer capitalistic society, and I don't think that'll ever change. I think there's going to be attempts to make change, and there's going to be continued attempts to say capitalism needs to be, you know, dismantled, but I don't think it's really going to have a major long-term shift. We're going to have attempts at making the shift, but I think the core components are always going to kind of remain the same. So that brings me to the conversation of capitalism with magic and flesh and blood right now. You know, to give you guys an example, Wizards doesn't want magic cards to be expensive. Richard Garfield has been on the record saying he doesn't want magic cards and reserve lists, mistakes, and Mark Rosewater. And they want cards to be cheap because they want it to be a cheap game. But at the same time, Magic is a collectible card game. And it's designed to be desirable and to acquire things that are tough to get. And I think Wizards has really lost sight of some of these things. Back in the day, you know, there's a lot of old cards that were always expensive. As you guys saw in one of my price guide videos I did the other day, on the first time I bought on the internet in 1998 from Paul and Judy's Coins and Cards. As you guys, if you actually watched that video all the way through, you learned that there were cards even back in 1998, like Ali from Cairo, that were $100 a card. And they were only a couple of years old. And here we are, 15 years later, and the card's $200. It really didn't even change much. I mean, what is that, an inflation adjustment of 3% a year? You know, so not everything's created equally. And unfortunately, you know, and you guys feel free to thumbs down. I'm okay with that. Someone has to be the punching bag of the world for Magic. But, you know, the reserve list did allow Magic to really flourish in the early troubling days of the 90s. Now, obviously, the reserve list can be argued in 2020 times and the internet and social media. But in the early days, it really did inject a very strong, you know, really strong bite into the distributor LGS business model after the confidence was cracked in 1995. Similar to what happened at Force of Will in 2016 with Millennia of Ages. Once Force of Will released a bad product, and stores around the country, including myself, lost thousands of dollars on the product, buying those boxes, and it happened to tons of stores because Force of Will was booming. They didn't do anything about it to fix it. They should have, and they didn't. And that was the day the music stopped for Force of Will. And since then, you know, it's stabilized and doing okay, but it never boomed. It never recovered. Wizards of the Coast realized they had a lot of screw-ups and problems and overprinting with the Chronicles thing, and they invented the reserve list, which has never been done in collectible history. And at that point in time, it was the correct decision, and it re-injected credibility into the distribution model in the LGSs around the country. I've talked to LGSs that were around in Florida here and in Georgia in the 90s when I was just in high school. And they were telling me stories about those kind of things, and it's very fascinating. Obviously, in 2020, the world's very different, and it's argued all kinds of ways. But, it really comes back to credibility and confidence and belief in the future of collectibles and games. Right now, Magic is treading a thin line where that credibility and confidence is eroding day, week, month by month. And I don't know how they're going to, shift the momentum this time. Because the difference now in 2020, Wizards in the online social media culture is extremely biased to very cheap cards, anti-reserve lists, and everything should be cheap for the players, while failing to not fully understand the behind the scenes and the tens of millions of dollars that's involved with Magic per year on new product with distribution, LGSs, Cardamundi, Wizards, Papa Hasbro. It's very complicated, and we can't downplay that. And I definitely don't have the answers to this kind of stuff. I definitely don't. But from my perspective, we are on a path where it's a little shaky. It's a little scary. But I do believe in the company. I don't agree with a lot of things they do. I think a lot of the biggest thing I don't agree with Wizards of the Coast is still the secret lair. I don't agree with the concept of it. I don't agree with selling direct to the market on secondary market singles. I like the concept of fancy versions of the same cards, but again, that's just the era we're in. I guess it was just a matter of time. But with this very bearish negative sentiment on capitalism and making money, which again, at times I understand, and I kind of agree with it in the moment. There's certain moments where the market and a lot of younger people who are very anti-capitalism, I can't disagree with it, because there are times where capitalism reeks its nasty face and it's not good. It's not good. There's no way for myself to defend that type of concept 100% of the time, but I can defend it many scenarios, maybe at least 50 to 75% of the time. And I still consider it the best of the worst choices. Does that make sense? The best of the worst options you can take. That's kind of it's double-edged, is what it is. And I don't agree with Wizards' idea of making everything printed to oblivion and not special and not collectible and not rare. I think it's a very dangerous path they're on. And that leads me to Flesh and Blood. Over 50% of my Patron messages now are Flesh and Blood related. 40% of my emails from the general public are Flesh and Blood or Pokemon related. 60% are still Magic and collection buying and negotiations. 40% of my emails from the general public are non-Magic related now. I've never had that high of a thing. It's very interesting. And on top of that, the amount of money in collectors and older individuals, and even young people that just like Flesh and Blood in the game, in the concept of the game, and the feeling of going back to true rarity, truly desirable, unique versions or cards, has really gripped a lot of people. Because they say, and I quote, many people have said to me, Rudy, I haven't felt truly unique or rare cards from Magic in years. And Flesh and Blood has brought that back. And, just simple stuff, And I get it. I agree with that. The chase. And many of you out there will understand what I'm saying. Some of you will not, and that's okay. But it's important to learn from both perspectives. And the chase and desirability of very rare components of a game, or a card specifically, is an important thing. It cannot be underestimated, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very... Creating a truly desirable item is what makes it special. If, a Ferrari was the price of a Kia, well, there'd be Ferraris everywhere, and it would be still cool, not gonna lie. I'd like to own one day, instead of just driving a Ford truck around just to haul Magic cards. But, one of the very alluring things of certain items in this world, or lifestyles that you see of rich and famous people online, is that it's very difficult to obtain. It's very desirable. It's very rare. It's very unique. It's not the norm. It's special. It's more pleasurable. It gives you those dopamine hits. It's very, it's a very addicting thing. And, I think Magic has lost that. And that's a very hard thing to say. I truly think Magic has lost that. I believe Wizards needs to find a way to bring that back, because I really think they've lost it. There is nothing super, like when I look at some of my recent box openings, even a Commander Legends, the collector boxes or anything, or the Zendikar, the Expeditions. I mean, the Zendikar Rising collector boxes, I like them. They're a lot of fun to open. I love the Expeditions, seeing if we got the 2 box topper ones that are non-foil. Are we going to get 1, 2, or 3 of the foil ones mixed in? It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's fun. Same thing with Commander Legends, the collector boxes. Jeweled Lotus, Mana Drain, or what? Vampiric Tutor or Bust, right? Having rarity and difficult to obtain in swings and prices and winners and losers is an important component of society. Unfortunately, you have to have winners and losers. And it's a nasty thing to say, because that is how the world is, in economies are currently set up to function. And maybe that changes in the future. But I don't know how Wizards is going to backpedal or try to correct that. Because when we look at Flesh and Blood right now, I mean, the true frenzy to get the rare desirable cards or the first edition boxes, it reminds me of Pokemon. The game's going through tremendous growing pains. And the next phase of Flesh and Blood, I know this video is getting long, not many people are still watching. The next phase of Flesh and Blood is going to be negativity, I assure you. The next phase of Flesh and Blood on message boards, Reddit groups, or private Discord groups and Facebook groups is going to be negativity. I predict any time from maybe already now being filmed, or the next 90 days before the next release of Flesh and Blood, you're going to see an increase in wave of negativity towards the creator of the game, Legend Story Studios, and myself, and anyone involved. My rationale behind that is that Flesh and Blood is going through the same thing Pokemon and Magic went through in the 90s, which was a product was created based on a certain demand, which was very low and very new. And the projections were highly inaccurate and everything goes crazy. Similar to Magic, how it started at the beginning with very low print runs. And you guys have to understand, when Magic came out in the first 2 years, Magic did the same thing. Pokemon did the same thing. Pokemon prices skyrocketed from day one. Magic card prices and Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Arabian Nights, Legends, they were selling for multiple X's their MSRP immediately. We've been there. We've done this. Gotten the gift bag. Wearing the t-shirt. This is not new. But what is new is everybody around today was not doing Magic 20 years ago. Most of the people expressing their pitchfork anger or their frustration of rising prices or lack of supply. These people weren't around 20-something years ago to experience that. This is deja vu. And this is also leaning towards a lot of wealthier individuals who are older to take notice because they remember 25 years ago when Magic and Pokemon started. And that is luring and attracting, like catnip, more wealthier collectors and investors from around the world. So you have to understand the older individuals who've been there, done that. They're seeing deja vu, and they're moving in very aggressively. Never seen anything like it. And because of that, we're going to continue to see more market strains in Flesh and Blood, and I expect it to eventually, like a rubber band, you're going to keep pulling it, eventually it's going to snap, and then we're going to swing to negativity everywhere. The negativity will try to dampen the growth in the direction of Flesh and Blood, but I think the game will overcome, similar to Magic and Pokemon of the 90s. And I truly believe that the game will navigate increased print runs, as they said they would in Monarch and moving forward. And the increased print runs won't matter, because the appetite for individuals buying increased order sizes and higher quantities is going to outpace the higher print run. It will not make a difference. And the demand for first edition cold foils and that truly scarce, beautiful items will sustain, even in the face of negativity. Now, the difference between Wizards of the Coast and Legend Story Studios, from at least my communication with Legend Story Studios and having no communication with Wizards because they're a corporate Goliath that thinks we're all idiots, the difference between the two is very clear. Legend Story Studios is very adamant on making, beautiful old school style artwork. I mean, certain cards are just stunning. I mean, the artwork is amazing. Some of the hero cards and Shyana and the Arc Knight shards and the heart and the eye and some of these cards. I mean, even, I had people bring to attention that Crucible War box opening I did the other day. about gamblers, was it gambler gloves? I didn't know in the picture, if you look, in the guy's hand, he has a dice. And all sides of the dice are marked with 6-sided dice. So the 6-sided dice, all sides of the dice are 6. So it's a rigged game. And I didn't even catch the little details in the art. And let me explain something to you all. Those little details, that's what makes or breaks a game. Because they go the extra mile. And I was like, look, I've seen Gambler's Gloves. I've seen the card online. I've read it. I've seen pictures of it in person online for the last 6 months. And I never noticed that. And there's so many things like that, you know? And it's crazy. It's crazy. And, you know, that's what I feel is going to happen. I feel the negativity wave is going to flourish towards Flesh and Blood. Because essentially right now, Flesh and Blood has 2 types of demographics. You got the people who got in early and took a chance or believed in the game. And they've been rewarded extremely well. And then you have people who didn't, or they didn't discover it, or they're angry because they missed out, or simply they're very angry at stores that do have the product, aren't willing to sell it real cheap so they can flip it online and make money. That goes back to the scalper, price increase, business model, capitalism is bad, you know, whatever terminology you want to use, you can argue all directions, and that's for your own decision. But to discuss it with no emotion involved, stores, if you get a case of Welcome to Wraith alpha boxes in that are $3,000-$4,000 a box. No, you shouldn't sell those for $99 because unfortunately the public wants you to, because whoever gets that can flip it on eBay and make thousands of dollars in free tendies. Everybody wants free chicken tenders. But the reality is all you're doing is making someone happy because you're giving them free money. And the difference between longevity and understanding the market is you're going to have to accept that people are going to be angry at you if they can't make free money off of you. That's something I learned a very long time ago when dealing with Patreon, and as my Patreon and business grew in 2017, 3 to 4 years ago, is, you know, when I did extreme deep discounts at a loss, similar to how I sell my $79.99 standard boxes at a loss, I actually attracted a whole different crowd of buyers, and I'd just see them all flipping on eBay and close their account. And, you know, we've talked about this in the past, and that's really not the healthiest thing, because you're creating an environment where a lot of the people who watch your videos or want to support you are simply just only there. If they can't make money on you, they're going to leave. And that's okay. If people get angry because, oh, Rudy, you're going to sell the new Kaldheim Magic set and, you know, it's $150 a box on eBay and you're selling it for $129. Ridiculous. That you could easily sell it for $119. Well, I could, but the reality is, I know that a lot of you may not want to hear this, but, you know, not every product can be sold at a loss. Profit does need to be made to sustain the overhead, all the rent on leases, locations, utilities, internet, storage, security systems, the shipping costs, the disputes, the fraud, the people who come after me, the people who get angry that open disputes and chargebacks. You know, you need to make profit to sustain the business. Not everything can be sold at a loss. Money does need to be made. And I know in this new era, that's not a very pleasant thing. Most people would never say something like that because it's dangerous. But if you want to stand the test of time, that is the reality of the situation. But at the same time, if eBay's selling a box of ABC cards for $200, I don't think selling it for $300 just to see if, you know, 1 or 2 of your loyal people will buy it is a prudent direction either. But at the same time, again, if you only have Crucible of War first edition boxes, all you have left is 73 boxes, and I want to do box openings for the future because I've got 4 of them in the queue, you know, taking those boxes and selling them for $99 and just letting other people flip them is not going to help me, or the other person's going to love it because they just made free money, but it doesn't really help me do box openings or help the game. All you're doing is giving a couple people the ability to flip product, and they're going to leech on you because they just want to make some quick money and then leave. That's not really creating a good long-term structure and relationship either. It's very complicated, everybody. And that's okay. You know, I'm used to, and I handle a lot of negativity from the public and patrons and other stores and distributors at times. We get in arguments, and that's just how the world works, and that's okay. But it's how you navigate it, how you negotiate it, and how you have the open conversation is the difference on how the future will mold itself. So I'm going to get to the last part of this video here, just kind of giving you guys a Rudy's thought process here. People say I talk like an 80-year-old man who's been around the block. Well, there's many times I feel like that, you know. So we'll finish up this video here. It's pretty long today, but essentially, you know, when it comes to Flesh and Blood, I just want the public and the people who are into the game to be, you know, kind of arms and feet in the vehicle, because we'll wrap this video up, everybody. This is the end. But everybody needs to be aware that, you know, the game's going to go through growing pains. And, you know, patrons and public people sending me screenshots and pictures from message boards and Facebook groups saying, if the prices keep going up, I'm out. Screw this, I'm angry. You're seeing the emotional response. And when I see emotional responses like that, it's not because people don't like the game. It's because they're frustrated. They have such passion, and they love the game, and they care about the game. And they're frustrated because they either can't obtain it, or it's getting so expensive they feel like they just can't be a part. There's a difference. In Magic, with Wizards and what they're doing, it's a little different. Everybody can obtain it because they're printing so many different things so frequently. It's making people, on the other side of the coin, unhappy. You have supply problems, and they start reprinting the supply, and the prices erode. People get angry. Other times, they don't get fixed, and the prices stay elevated like Jumpstart. Or then there's no supply at all like Commander Legends collector boxes, and the price just doesn't go down at all. You know, you can't predict it. It's a risky thing. There is investment risk across the board with everything. So my closing thoughts on all this stuff, everybody, is that, you know, Magic, Pokemon, and Flesh and Blood, I kind of right now are going to be going through some substantial swings in 2021 in the next year. It's going to be a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. I'm quitting Magic, going to Flesh and Blood. I'm quitting Flesh and Blood. It's all investors and people scalping prices. I'm quitting this and going back to Pokemon because everybody's stuff. Who cares about the game? Just collect the shiny cards. You know, there's a way to look at everything with different lens, but you can't use people being negative about you or your store or a distributor or the game as a whole on the internet or social media. You can't use that kind of feedback to change your business, the card game, or the collectible as a whole. And that's a very tough thing for people to understand, because I'm essentially telling you, if a lot of people are complaining and bashing you and saying negative things, or you're sketchy, illegal, this, that, dangerous, this and that, you're ruining the game, you know, you can't listen to what seems like everyone's opinion, because it may not be everyone's opinion. You know, I've been getting an increased number of messages lately saying that I don't like that Rudy's becoming the image of Flesh and Blood, or the brand ambassador. I like that term. That was one I got in a message the other day. I don't like this and that, and it's attracting too many more rich people or wealthier people, and other card stores and distributors are getting involved. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, I'm very honored to be a part of it. I feel like I'm more excited about that than I am Magic right now. Because Magic, the sheer volume of products and just some of the things Magic's doing in the printing, and the lack of quality, or the quantity of printing, or the increased prices on every set release, and, you know, not even the secondary market, just from Wizards themselves, they're in the secret lair, and, you know, and then of course, you know, banning a bunch of random cards because of the 2020 culture wars, and it's just like, you know, I don't know, you know, I'm more excited about actually probably Pokemon and Flesh and Blood are a little bit more attractive to me than Magic right now. But just because my emotional feelings are that way doesn't mean I'm going to change anything with Magic. I'm not going to change anything. I'm just telling you how I feel, but that's not going to change my actions. And that's a very distinctive difference, everybody. So I wanted everybody to know that with Magic and Flesh and Blood, and what I feel is going to be coming with these prices. With the announcement of more government printing of money, I think we're going to see more anger as inflation flares and rears its nasty head in the collectible world. I expect Magic, Pokemon, and Flesh and Blood to inflate even further in the next 12 months as all of the collectible cards boom. And that's really about it. That's today's kind of thought process on everything, and my warning to everybody that I expect a lot more negativity to enter the market for Flesh and Blood as the game experiences growing pains, and as people start to lash out with their emotional opinion, trying to jump on bandwagon and get other people to agree with their anger. I don't think it's going to be justified, but I fully expect it to be very strong. For all you stores out there dealing with Magic products, or Pokemon, or Flesh and Blood, keep that in mind. Remember that. There are certain types of customers that are only going to be your customer if you're pretty much selling product at either a loss or at a break even, or you're making like a couple dollars. Those are the type of customers, you know, even if you make them happy in the short term, they will be angry at you in the long term, and they will not be around. You cannot focus on that kind of stuff because it is impossible to make them happy. And you will make a decision or a move, or maybe a price will be too low or too high, and you know, they'll be angry at you, and we're going to boycott or ban that store over in Colorado. We're going to ban them. I don't like what they did. Did you hear what they did? They've got VIP double masters for $1,000 for one pack. Everybody ban them. You know, you're going to see this kind of thing. Same thing with Flesh and Blood on the older product now, the first editions that were just not available. They're just so rare now. So that's, you know, I just want people to kind of think about this stuff. And I think the community for Magic and for Pokemon and for Flesh and Blood as a whole is still very good. Everybody involved, majority of everybody. I mean, I would be willing to bet 99% of the people in Flesh and Blood and Pokemons and Magic are good people who enjoy the game. Seriously. I know it doesn't feel that way because the only feedback you're getting is from social media, which only promotes and upvotes and flags and awards the little icons, the negative stuff. And it skews your perception, and it makes you think things are a certain way when they may not be. So that's all I have today. I hope you all learned something about kind of thinking for yourself, kind of the direction of everything, inflation, growing pains, the impending negativity in all collectible classes. And just remember that, you know, enjoy it and have fun with it. And it is a hobby. It's called a hobby. And collectible card games are a hobby. They're supposed to be rare. They're supposed to have value. And the chase and the hunt is what makes it fun. It doesn't mean you should be angry and rage quit. And if that's the case, you're probably going to have larger problems in other categories of your life. And you should probably think more logically and critically at a lot of different segments on yourself or your family or your significant other or your job or your career. I mean, you need to approach things and be respectful, even if you don't agree with people. It's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't agree with a lot of things, and most people out there. I don't trust almost anybody. I work alone with family. I don't trust anyone. I mean, that's just the way I've always been. I'm very skeptical of everything. And that's okay. But the key is to just, you know, instead of being angry at everybody or focusing on the world or wizards or card games, I think people should do more listening and pay more attention. You know, some of the biggest things I've learned in this world are actually not from talking and asking questions and things. It's actually from just doing nothing and listening and watching everybody. That's kind of the thing I do. I don't post on comments and social media or message boards. I like to listen. And you can learn a lot about different people and kind of people they are based on just listening. So that's all I have. Everybody enjoy it. Remember, 2021, Magic, Pokemon, Flesh and Blood. It's going to be a fun year, man. A lot of amazing products are coming. And make sure you're still enjoying it. Otherwise, you're missing out.